This is Steve McGrath, and welcome back to Beyond the Helmet. Now, today's conversation is with perhaps the best NFL coach that you've never heard of. Terry Robiskie has coached 39 consecutive seasons from 1982 through 2020, and that's after he played in the NFL as a player. So we're talking about 45 years of professional football experience. Now, Coach took the time to talk about his journey, perspectives he's gained along the way. But before we get to that conversation, just really quick, I want to shout out JV Floor and Tile, because my man Jared Vi, and that's VIA, came and did a phenomenal job on a project that I had going on. So if you are in the Massachusetts area and you're looking for any tile job, it's JV Floor and Tile. My man Jared Vi, no one is better. Now, that being said, here is my conversation with the legendary Coach Terry Robiskie.
The big thing for me is sitting down outside watching the game, and then you look back and you kind of wonder, after being in it for all those years, you sit back and you wonder, doing this, was this the right thing? You know what I mean? Or should we have done it this way? Or maybe I should have tried it this way, or maybe I should have tried it that way. But then you sit down like this weekend was my weekend to go and admire Coach Belichick again. Coach Belichick is, to me, I don't want to go back to, I don't want to go back to Coach Landry. I don't want to go back to Coach Lombardi, Coach Brown. I don't want to go back to them old guys. But in modern football, I think Coach Belichick is a genius. I think he's brilliant. I think he's the best, and I think he's the best that I've ever really kind of stood across the field from. So this was my weekend to go watch him. He was in Los Angeles. They were playing the Chargers. And I just wanted to go sit and watch him do what he do, and I tell people it's like watching Picasso draw, what I mean? It was fantastic. It was great sitting there watching him. And I thought this weekend he was brilliant. I thought he was brilliant with his game plan. It was such a simple thing. It was simple how they played it. It was simple how they attacked the Chargers, and it worked for him. And I just had a blast for it because it makes me quit questioning a call I might have made 7 years ago. It made me quit questioning a technique I was coaching, or a game plan I was running, how we ran it, or what we decided to do. And you just sit down and watch him do it. And when you see somebody so brilliant doing it so well, you realize I was on the right track, and I think I did it the right way.
And you picked an incredible game to watch, not because it was the most awe-inspiring performance, but for the first time in really 2 years, the Patriots really showed what they can be when they are on their A game. I mean, last year was a debacle for them. And so to see Bill basically coach up a defense to give a young quarterback fits, someone who has the potential maybe to be a future MVP with just his physical gifts.
Yeah.
So you saw that and you said, you know what, there's no second guessing anything I did. What is it about, if from what I just heard, you said it was fairly simple what he was doing, but it was obviously enough to give a good offense fits. What is it, if you can just explain to the casual fan, what is it that Bill does so well that can completely distort what an offense wants to do to his team?
Yeah, I just think that he's brilliant in the way he designs his things he's doing. His not just his blitz package, and again, I'm always looking at defense a lot. I look at defense, but of course I study offense too, to compare what I used to do the way I did it. But to watch him confuse the offense, and to watch the little bitty tricks and things he'll do. He'll put four to a side and get you to check the protection to that side. And all of a sudden, just like the game Sunday, at one point in time, he had what looked like four guys coming left of the center. So naturally, for us on offense, we got to turn the line that way and go pick it up. But in reality, it wasn't coming from that side. He had four over there, but it was coming the other way. You know what I mean? So for a young quarterback, it's like wandering in the desert. He's a little dizzy. He's sitting there and it's a mirage. You think it's coming to the left, but in reality, it was a nickel DB coming off the slot to the right, and that's the guy they missed, and that's the guy that came in and made the play. And all that thing that happens, it goes, and Bill give you a little trick here and a little trick there, and he'll bring seven guys up. There's seven guys up in the box, and you think they're all coming, and all of a sudden they take a step up and they drop back out, and all of a sudden there's only three guys rushing. You stand there thinking, here comes seven, and there's only three. And I'm not sure that's what happened at the end. sitting and watching the game. The Chargers ran. I don't know if it was a wide option or a wide choice, and the tight end turned in, and the quarterback threw it out. And that's the one thing that Bill does all day is just kind of keep going and take his time, and he's just real careful what he's doing. And at the end of the day, he's just waiting for you to make that one mistake, and that one mistake costs you the game. And that's basically what happened. You know what I mean? And I don't know what the quarterback saw, but I know the tight end turned in, and the quarterback threw it out, and the DB ended up intercepting it. You know, and again, you see that happening week in and week out. Those little bitty things is just the little bitty things that happens like that, and that's the things that he's so perfect at, and he ends up beating you. You know, the same thing happened at the end of the day. The same thing happened in the Arizona game. You know, it goes down the Arizona game, and the quarterback picks it up and makes a nice play, nice throw, and he throws it over to AC Green on the right-hand side, and AC wasn't alert for it. The DB looked in and saw it, and the DB intercepted, and the game's over. You know what I mean? So it's just one little thing that we're not on the same page with, and at the end of the day, it costs you the game.
Yeah. And as you've said, you spent your coaching career and playing career on the offensive side of the ball. So a lot of what I want to ask is sort of geared toward offense. When you, and maybe it's different when it comes to playing against a Belichick team, but in general, how much are you reacting to what the defense is doing to you, and how much of it is you're trying to dictate what you want to do? Right? Someone sort of has to make the other side react. So how much of it is on offense? Were you reacting to what was available, or were you dictating the terms and pushing what you wanted to play to make the defense react?
No, and I think that, again, my theory has always been when you get to a point that you're playing the Bills defense, you're playing against Belichick. Today, the Buffalo Bills, Leslie Frazier, when you're playing against that defense. Back in the day when you was playing Tony Dungy, Monty Kiffin, if you're going against the Baltimore Ravens, you're in for a long day if you try to dictate. If you get over there on offense and you think you can dictate to them, you know, hey, you know, we're going to dictate to y'all what y'all going to do, you're in for a rude awakening. You know, you have got to basically go into that game and you've got to adjust the things you do, and you better adjust it fast. Because like I said, a lot of people sit down and say, okay, I'm going to dictate to them. The only time I think you can sit down and say, you know, you're going to dictate when you've got a better offense, or when you've got a Tom Brady, or you got an Aaron Rodgers, you've got a Troy Aikman. When you got one of those guys with his hand under center, Doug Williams could hurt you back in the day. You put Doug in there. When you got those kind of guys, you can dictate some things of what we're going to do. But as a whole, you best be careful, because you can't just come up and dictate. Not to those defense. It ain't gonna happen, because eventually, if you're playing with a younger guy, it's gonna get you. At the end of the day, they'll get you. And again, you make one mistake, it'll cost you the game.
Oh, definitely. You know, when you look at just talking about, you know, Leslie Frazier and what the Bills are doing, but of course, you know, Leslie Frazier, you know, he's coached at a bunch of different places. You know, my mind kind of immediately goes to Minnesota. Being in the game as long as you've been, you get a chance to see these guys move from job to job. You know, you're not just sort of dropped in where you have to learn the landscape. How much, like, at what point in your career, because we're talking nearly 40 years here, at what point in your career were you so familiar with who the different coaches were that basically the amount of prep, not that it got easier, but because you knew what everyone's tendencies were, in a sense, it got a little easier because you kind of had that complete idea of what the landscape was.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, I think, is when you've been in it for a long time, and you realize the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers are the Pittsburgh Steelers. The greatness is that they have their system, just like Coach Belichick. They have their system. That's what they're gonna run. That's what they're gonna do. They don't change the system. They change the people in the system. You know what I mean? And, you know, when you get to a point that you've played them X amount of time, you know, at the end of the day that my individual has got to beat their individual, because, you know, Coach Tomlin and Coach Butts up there, they don't mind you knowing what's coming. They just want to find out, can you pick it up? Even back to the days of the Steelers when Coach LeBeau was there, you know, and of course, Dick LeBeau is one of the greatest to ever do it. You knew it was coming. I mean, you knew it was four coming from the three-man side. You know what was happening on the backside of slot. You know when it was coming with a safety blitz. You knew Troy Polamalu was going to be somewhere in there diving in the sky with his hair flying around the place. You knew what was coming. Their mindset was, okay, here it is, it's coming. Can you pick it up? And that's where the mistake comes. And all they need is one guy to be confused, and they give you a different looks, but it was coming. And if one guy who had his hand in the dirt, the right guard turns right when he was supposed to turn left. The right guard block out when he's supposed to block down because the Mike stepped up in the air gap. All they need is one guy to be off page. And if you're off page, it's a sack, fumble, it's a tip ball, it's an interception. And with Troy, it was an interception going back for a touchdown. So you can sit down and game plan it, and some weeks it'll be a little bit easier because everybody don't have a Troy Polamalu. Everybody don't have that guy that can create those problems. Everybody don't have an Ed Reed, or Ray Lewis. So those guys that week of is a little different. But when you get to that one particular week, when you've got the Steelers this Sunday, and then you don't get Baltimore for 5 more Sundays, you could be a little bit more cautious as you preparing in between. But as a whole, when you're preparing for the Steelers, it's coming, but you got to prepare your guy to pick him up. You know what I mean?
Sure. Now, everyone knows Coach LeBeau from the Steelers days, but you, of course, coached when he was the DC. You were the OC for the Tennessee Titans.
Yes.
Did you get any sort of insights? Because generally, I wanted to ask more about coaches when you were younger and sort of who influenced you. But when it comes to just being, Hall of Fame coach and Hall of Fame player in Dick LeBeau, was there anything that you were sort of at that stage in your career? Obviously, you knew very much what you were doing, but were you able to gain any sort of insight from him and his approach since you were able to basically work in the same building?
That was the biggest thing for me. And of course, they say it's always great to be sitting in a room with greatness. They say if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're the wrong guy. So I love being in the room, sitting there with him. It was fantastic. The thing that I learned, the thing I learned most from him, my time there in Tennessee, was put the load on your best player. Don't ask a safety who is not Troy Polamalu to do what Troy did. It just doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? Maybe it's another guy on your team. Like, for example, a lot of conversations I had with him. And he and I would sit and chat, and I'd often hear him talk about what a pain in the rear end that certain guys would give him. You know what I mean? Delaney Walker was a pain in the butt, and I hear him talk about that. So right then, my whole thing was, I'm gonna put all the weight in the world on the shoulder of Delaney Walker, and that was gonna be our guy. Delaney was our guy when we was in Tennessee. And that was the biggest thing and the big lesson. And the other thing about Coach LeBeau was, Terry, just prepare yourself, do the best you can to prepare yourself to be ready on Wednesday and Thursday. So when you get to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's easy. And you don't have to stress, you know what I mean? And his old saying was, the hair's in the bone, let's go play the guitar. That was big for him. He would sit in his office at night, and I'd go sit in there with him and chat with him and talk to him. And I don't know if people knew it, but 8:30, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, he'd sit down and start grab his little guitar and start picking a few strings and start playing the guitar. And I'd go sit and listen to him. And it was good. It was very, very good. But that was his deal when he got to Friday and Saturday. He wanted to sit in his office, close his door, play his guitar, and just relax and say, hey, as he said, the hair's in the bone. Let's go play. And that was good. It was good.
I love that. So like I had said, though, I would really like to take this back just a couple decades, late 70s, early 80s. As you're a young man, you're this incredible coach that obviously, to stick around 39 years as an NFL coach, consecutive years, no days off and fall for you. So I am glad you're able to actually enjoy some football this time of year for a change.
Right.
But when you are a young man, you come in, you get John Madden out of the gate. You play for Coach Shula. And of course, Tom Flores, who is on that staff, is the first coach that you work for, coming directly after being a player, being a coach. When you think back to that time, was there anyone in particular that really left an impression upon you as to, if not be a young man, how to be a professional in a coach? Or were you sort of one of those guys that kind of had your scaffolding set and you were good to go?
No, absolutely not. I was I was a guy that I learned a lot of stuff that I learned from my high school coach. I only had two coaches in high school my whole 4 years there, 5 years really. I started eighth grade, but my high school coach was fantastic, and I always thought he was a brilliant mind. I left from there, went on. When I got to professional football, and when I got to the Raiders, they had just won the Super Bowl. So right off the bat, I think I don't know if I was more impressed with John Madden. I was more in fear of John Madden. When I walked in, the very first day I ever met him, John was standing up in the lobby when I walked in the lobby of the Hyatt Hagenberg. And when I walked in the lobby and he was standing by the desk, I was happy I had just gone to the bathroom at the airport, because I left from the airport, went to the hotel, and the guy was standing up by the desk. And I was happy I had just relieved myself at the airport, because when I walked up to him, I might have kind of peed down my pants leg. The guy was just, it was just an unbelievable person to walk to. I don't know, maybe Marcus Allen. I don't know anybody in football that love football, the X's and the O's and the winning and the beating the shit out of you. I don't know if anybody in football loves football more than John Madden. I really don't. But let me say this to you. I'll say this to you, Steve, in all honesty. I think that as I look upon it, that is probably the most disappointing point for me, a part for me of my life, my career. 40 years of coaching, 5 years of playing in the NFL. I've often asked myself, and I've asked a lot of people, how could you have ever played for a John Madden? Learn from him. Tom Flores, learn from him. Mike Shanahan, learn from him. Don Shula, I learned from him. North Turner, learned from him. All those guys says greatness. They all say Super Bowl, because everyone I just mentioned to you have 1 or 2, 3, 4 Super Bowls under their belt. How could I have been in a room with all these geniuses, learned from every one of them, took something from every one of them, and never had a chance to advance my career and become a head coach? I think that's the one part that's been hard for me, and been a little bit hurt, But when you ask me which one of those guys, all them guys with all the Super Bowls or Super Bowl rings, which one, who was the most influential in my life, I would die saying Al Davis. Nobody in, let me say this to you, nobody in my 50 years or 65 years being alive was as impactful on my career as Al Davis. Nobody took me under their own. Nobody took me in their room. Nobody took me in their office. Nobody took me in the gym with them. Nobody took me on the field and walked me through stuff. Nobody talked me through stuff. Nobody had me come over to their apartment at 1 o'clock in the morning to go over stuff, to teach me this, to teach me that. Nobody taught me what to say, how to say it. Nobody taught me how to recruit a free agent, and get him to sign with us. Nobody taught me the tricks of the trade. Nobody taught me how to treat players like players. And nobody ever gave me this one saying that have stuck with me for the rest of my life, wherever he stole it from. He always said, a good coach makes a player great. A great coach makes a player a great person. Which one are you? And Al Davis touched my life more than anybody in my career.
Wow. Yeah. Of course, no one has ever said that to me, quite as eloquently as you just have. But I've certainly heard more through secondhand stories similar to that of what Al Davis, what he represented, and who he was.
Right.
So, him passing in of course, his son now being at the helm of the Raiders. How much now? Me just getting a better understanding of who Al Davis was. How much has that organization lost with him not being there? I mean, is it so monumental that it's, and this is no indictment on John Gruden or anything that's happened as of late, but just from looking at it as at the core, when you lose a sort of central tenet like that, I mean, for how many years was he a central force in the NFL? Right. I mean, how does an organization move forward when they lose a pillar like that?
Yeah, and I think his son Mark is of the same bloodline. Mark Blood doesn't run as deep in the NFL as his dad. He's been in it all his life, but Mark he's never been a coach. You know, he's never worked in the equipment room. He's never been a coach. And I shouldn't say he's never worked in the equipment room. Maybe he did, but I've never seen him there. You know what I mean? And he's never coached. He's never scouted. He's never been a GM. He's never been an owner until now. You know what I mean? But his desire to win, he got from his dad. His desire to see the silver and black win and succeed, he got from his dad. His desire to have success at this level, to go win a Super Bowl, he got from his dad. Now you ask me, how do they move on? They'll move on, and they'll move on, and they'll do well. I mean, they'll get it done. They'll get it going. As great a human being as his dad was, I think kind of like myself, you know, after a period of time, people see us, we become dinosaurs, and we've got to move over. You know what I mean? And times change, you got to change with it. I'm not sure, even in today's football, if his daddy would have changed. You know, I think that Al Davis, like Belichick, like Bill Parcells, like all the great ones, Bill Walsh, they all had systems, and they all believed in it, and they knew it worked because they had seen it work. Al Davis believed, he died believing speed kills. And today, I think he would still be drafting good players. He'd pass on a great player because he wasn't fast enough, but he would assign good players because his mindset was he was fast, and I'm gonna make him great. You know what I mean? So I don't think he would have changed with today's football. You know, you watch everybody. I think every day, if that whole organization, the Arizona Cardinals, if you took that whole offense and put them in silver and black, and they ran that offense, he would flip over in his grave every quarter. He'd flip over because that's just not him. You know what I mean? He wants to throw it deep, and he wants to go with it, but he wants to pound, as he says, he wants to pound the rock, and he wants to play action and throw it over people's head. You know, he didn't want to be spread out 5 wides, run and shoot. That just wasn't him. You know, so you know, I think they'll move on, and they'll be good. They'll be in the thick of things, and they'll be in the middle of it. You know, are they gonna get to the Super Bowl this year, next year? I don't know the answer to that question, but I know this: in Mark Davis' lifetime, they're gonna play in the Super Bowl. They're gonna play in one.
Definitely. They certainly seem to have some pieces. There's a lot of good talent in the NFL. So as you know, not very easy to get there.
Right.
You mentioned something about your career that I really want to circle back to, but just one last Raiders question while we're here. You were part of that Super Bowl winning team in '83. So at least you did get a chance to get a ring, even though as a player, you might've just missed that window.
Yes.
When you think about teams winning Super Bowls, what was particularly special about that team, if anything? You know, you were on so many talented teams as a coach.
Yeah.
Was it sometimes is it really just a matter of luck and how the cards fall because you do so much to be prepared, you have the right talent, or was there truly something special you think about that team?
Well, that team was special. That organization back in those days at that time, to me was the most I don't know what the word is. Nobody came together like that group. When I got here, again, like I told you, you know, it was a group of players. John Madden, they had been to 4 or 5 championship games and lost. The Steelers had beat them. The Dolphins, they fought with and beat them one time. But when I got here, my high school was just like the Raiders when I left my high school. Every guy on my team, we knew his shoe size. It wasn't that many guys, but we knew his shoe size. We knew his shirt size. We knew his mom and dad. We knew his sister's birthday. We knew everything. When I came to the Raiders, the love was exactly the same. The love of your teammate, the guy next to you, the guy you play with. And I tell people all the time, when I came to the Raiders, they did something that was very, very unusual to me. Every Thursday in Alameda, California, and Oakland, to me, Oakland, California was the greatest city to host or to have the Oakland Raiders back then. And we would go to Alameda, right outside our little practice facility. Every Thursday, the whole team would go to Alameda, and we'd go sit down and have a beer or two, go sit down, eat some guacamole, go sit down, and we'd play shuffleboard, we'd play pool. We'd go to a neighborhood. Sorry, I don't know the name. I think it was the 18th hole. I think that's what it was called, or the 19th hole. But Pete Banaszak, Snake, Otis Sistrunk, Gene Upshaw, Art Shell, All those guys had it set up, and they were the first ones going. When you talk about the superstars on the team, oh, he's a superstar. All those guys was just down to earth. Wasn't no superstars. They were all down to earth. They were all gonna be in there sitting down in this little cowboy bar, drinking a beer, shooting pool, and falling in love with each other. Falling in love with each other. So that you understood when we walked out on the field and John Madden called 69 boom, or he called 14 lead, 14L, you knew that guy in front of you, the guy next to you, was gonna lay it on the line. You knew that guy loved you enough. He loved you enough to sit and eat with you and drink with you and hang out with you. He wasn't rushing to go home, to get away from you, get out the locker room, go home, play video games. Everybody there was about love, and everybody loved each other. And it wasn't going to be no thing. It wasn't going to be no thing that, oh boy, this guy made, oh man, I don't know now. His eyes are a little glazy. He might have had one beer too many. Give me your keys. Give me your car keys. You know what I mean? Because everybody loved everybody. Nobody wasn't going to let nobody, have too much to drink, drive home. It wasn't going to happen because we all loved each other. And that's what I saw from that team, that organization. And listen, I think I've coached in 4 or 5 championship games, that one game before the Super Bowl. And the one thing I'll say about those teams that I've been on, that I've coached on, even the Atlanta Falcons, we lost to San Francisco in an NFC championship game. Should have gone to the Super Bowl. We should have gone to the Super Bowl. But the love between Roddy White, Julio Jones, Tony Gonzalez, Matt Ryan, it was just phenomenal. Mike Turner, but unbelievable. All those guys, everybody loved everybody. Everybody loved each other. And that's what I found out on the teams that I've been on that had so much success. Guys loved each other to death.
It's nice to hear that there are some things that can transcend time, right? We're talking about the 83 Super Bowl team, and you fast forward 20 years later, and I'm sorry, 35 years later, and it's, it's that those same elements are there.
Right.
But when you think about what has changed in that time, everything you're saying about the camaraderie that you guys had, whether it's the salaries that guys make, it's social media, it's all these pressures that pull people in different directions today. Do you think that it's even possible, or actually, let me take a step back. How much do you think the landscape has changed? Because you've seen the athlete has gotten bigger, faster, stronger over the decades, but the outside world has changed with all these distractions and money on top of it. Do you like the way that, or did you find it harder to coach over time to connect with these guys and try to get some of that camaraderie?
It was not harder for me because I'm kind of, like I said, I'm like a dinosaur. I'm like Al Davis. I'm like John Madden. I was old, but I was who I was. I am who I am, and I changed. They say you got to change, and you better change. You better change with time. I changed, but I wasn't going to change that much. You know what I mean? I had to be who I had to be who I am, and that's all I could be. Have the game changed? Unbelievable. It's unreal what the game has become today. And how it is today. But it changes from the top on down. It didn't change from the bottom up. It changed from ownership, because guys are buying teams and paying a lot of money for them. $1 billion or $2 billion, whatever those numbers are. But you see people buying sports franchises for $1 billion and $2 billion, and at the end of the day, they've got to recoup their money. They've got to make money, and the business aspect is just so phenomenal. But listen, back in the day when we were all out there hustling and trying to do it, we were trying to get a job. We was trying to make a living. We was trying to get a job. We was trying to make a living and trying to earn a good living. Listen, my signing bonus was $8,000. I was barely able to go buy me a car. And my first year I played for $18,000. I played for 5 years, and the 5 years I played, I never made more than $40,000. My salary never got over $40,000. But today's world is all changed. And the thing back then is, listen, back then when we were playing, if Al Davis had signed a contract for, some $2 million, we wasn't sitting there saying, I'm gonna get my cut. I got to get my shares. Where's my piece? Where's my part? We were trying to win a ring, trying to keep a job and win a ring. Because at the end of the day, you can leave the game with a lot of things. You can leave with a lot of scars, a lot of aches, a lot of broken bone. But at the end of the day, the one thing that you'll never lose faith of, you got a ring on your finger. You got a Super Bowl ring. Those are hard to come by, man. You watched those Atlanta Braves last night when that guy caught that last ball, the whole dugout emptied. It's a hell of a feeling. And there's a lot of things in life you could buy. And there's a lot of things in football that a lot of owners can buy. But that Super Bowl ring is a little hard. You can't buy that one. You got to earn it. You got to earn it. And that's the difference, But today's football player, today's football players, it's a little bit more of the owner's got a big pie. I want my piece. And guys today talk more about my brain. You know what I mean? Oh, I can't mess up my brain. Or what is in this for me? Oh, I got a contract that my incentive, I've got to have 8 catches a game. None of those things have ever crossed our mind when we were playing. We just simply want to beat the crap out of the guy across from us. We wasn't sitting there thinking about, my share and, I got, 10,000 followers. So y'all got to pay me $1 a follower. We got no idea what the hell you're talking about. You know what I mean? We just want to beat the hell out of the next team we played. And, who's going to get a ring first, me or you, and that's what it came down to it. And at the end of the day, that's all we did. That's all we wanted to do. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Now, when you think back to the 80s or even when you were playing, is there anyone in particular that you really would have liked to have seen in today's game? Like the way that Kyler Murray and that Cardinals offense is run? Are there there's certainly guys who wouldn't be able to play in today's game based off of their size and skill set from decades prior. But do you think of like anyone in particular that would have like really flourished in today's game that maybe, even if they were highly successful, like, I don't know, Bo Jackson being Bo, today's power game, I mean, maybe he would have been the Derrick Henry of, what we have right now. But does anyone stand out to you as you would have liked to have seen like an offense that just, if Stabler was throwing, 45 balls a game?
No, I mean, the guys I've coached and the guys that I've been around back in days, and listen, I can go get you 2-3 guys who name you have no idea who the hell I'm talking about. I'll go get you 2-3 guys from back in the day that you could put them in today's game, and and you give them 2-3 years, they'd be in the Hall of Fame. But you probably don't even know their names, But the guys that I coached back then, and the guys that I played against or played with, you put those guys in today's football, they would absolutely dominate. I mean, it would be embarrassing. Now listen. I was in Nashville when we drafted Derrick Henry, and I was the guy that was calling the plays. I had him. And Derrick Henry is a phenomenal running back. I mean, he's unbelievable. But listen, I know one guy went to Auburn and one guy went to the University of Alabama. That's a big deal. But I'm gonna tell you this, and go tell Derrick I said so. Now, I'm not sure that Derrick could carry Bo Jackson's cleats to the locker room. I'm not sure Derrick Henry would be able to carry Bo Jackson's cleat to get him to the locker room. I'm just telling you. It's some guys that I put on a pedestal that maybe people say this guy. But I'll give you another guy, that Tony Gonzalez. He just retired a year or two ago. That guy named Tony Gonzalez. You know what I mean? I like Kelsey. I think he's good. 49ers got a really good tight end. Delaney Walker was dangerous, man. Delaney Walker, I had him. Boy, that guy can make plays. But if you put them 3 guys together, let them play on top one, they could all stand on top of each other's shoulder. I'm not sure they could do what Tony Gonzalez could do. Tony Gonzalez, I'm just telling you. When Tony Gonzalez, when Jesus Christ said, I'm gonna make a tight end, he needed help to make Tony Gonzalez. He made Tony Gonzalez. He needed help to make that guy. You know what I mean? Now, when we look at Murray in Arizona, the guy's a phenomenal football player, and he is dangerous with the ball. You know what I mean? And we could take Jackson, in Baltimore, good quarterback, dangerous, scary, and those guys are dangerous football player, man. They're good, you know what I mean? But Michael Vick was that guy. Michael Vick was that guy. But let me tell you this one. There's a guy that was at the University of Tennessee in the early 70s. There's a guy named Conrad Holloway. I think it's Conrad. Go look him up. Go look at that Conrad. Go look him up. If you took that guy and put him in today's football, he'd be magical. He'd be unbelievable. The things that guy, Conrad, was an unbelievable football player at the University of Tennessee. And all that stuff these guys are doing today, it's just the game has changed and people are letting them guys play. Those guys couldn't play. They couldn't play back in the day, because we could take guys from back in the day and bring them up to today's football. We can't take them guys from today's football and put them in that football, yesterday football. Because it was no such thing as you couldn't hit them in the head, or you couldn't tackle them around the ankle, or you couldn't hit them head on head because, oh boy, that's going to, that's targeting and all that crap. Them guys have been having concussions, And, you take Tyler Murray and put him back there and said, okay, Tyler, go ahead and do your little drop. And he's fantastic with it. But let me tell you something. There's a lot of guys who were fantastic. Lawrence Taylor was over there. When Lawrence Taylor was on that left side and Bruce Smith was on that left side, you better figure out a way to slow down that fantastic. It's a whole different ball game, And that's the goodness. That's the great thing about me. I had a chance to get ran over by a couple of them guys. Derek Thomas from Kansas City Chief. I had a chance to get run over by a couple of them guys. I had a chance to pass protect against a couple of those guys. But I had a lot of opportunities, many hours I spent coaching against them guys, And when we talk about today's football, I'm thinking about it, and I can't tell you a left tackle in the NFL today. I couldn't give you too many back in the day, but I couldn't tell you a left tackle in the NFL today that could block Lawrence Taylor or Bruce Smith. I can't tell you any. And back in the day, Anthony Munoz, Art Shell, I could give you a couple of left tackles that could probably do it. But today's football guys that playing today, I couldn't tell you any. I couldn't tell you any of today's football.
And you mentioned, Lawrence Taylor and Anthony Munoz, of course, Tony Gonzalez. You've had a chance to, if not play with, coach, either literally coach or coach against the best to ever do it. And like you said, God needed help when he put together Tony Gonzalez.
Right.
So these guys in particular, the best of the best are incredibly gifted, and most, I would imagine, are very hardworking, if not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do as a coach when you have guys that aren't as gifted as the top, right? How do you, and I'm not trying to say, make, chicken salad out of chicken shit, but because I'm not trying, it's not slap against these men, but they're just, when you're not the best of the best, what can you possibly do to sort of raise them to be the best player that they can be when you know that there's always going to be a gap there? It has to be such a treat to have a Tony Gonzalez, but when you don't, how do you make best with what you got?
You grab a little bit of what you give to Tony Gonzalez. You grab the smarts, you grab the intelligence, you grab you grab a guy that may have a little bit off from a technical standpoint. You know what I mean? That was a phenomenal thing for Julio Jones and I. When Julio Jones came to me, he was another one of those guys that was just God gift. But where I changed Julio Jones was I had him to sit down and look and say, that's the weak spot right there. Oh boy, that's the weak spot right there. We could find the weak spot in a corner. Maybe a corner was taken, and that was a trick of the trade I learned from a guy named Lester Hayes and Mike Haynes. He took the wrong step with the wrong jam. He's jamming with the wrong hand, and things of that nature. So, you take an outside release, you're sitting there, you take an outside release, and the guy trying to jam you, the corner trying to jam you with that outside arm, that's bad. So the little bit of things that you could help him with is just like James Robinson. We played in Indianapolis Colts, and every time you motion the tight end, if they was going to slant strong, they would pinch. They would go ahead and that weak side tackle would slide the head up. We knew that. So now James knew I could cut back behind him. If we motion that tight end across and he didn't move, I'm going to stay front side with that stretch. You know what I mean? So now you could teach those guys the little bitty things, the little bitty tricks of trade. You and I was talking about a guy that's been calling defense, Leslie Frazier. I know what hurts Leslie Frazier. I know that weak side sweep with that X crack in the wheel hurts him. It don't just hurt him, it keep him up at night. You know what I mean? So those little tricks and trades that that you've learned over the years, you just teach it to your players. And then when they succeed and they score a touchdown, they all run over to you and say, Coach, that's because of you. That's for you. And I've had guys come and give me a touchdown and score a touchdown and come and give me the ball. Coach, here, this is for you. This is because of you. This is for you. And it's been fantastic. But when you get a guy that's not as talented as others, you can get them all to work. Most of the guys going to work and they'll work their butt off. You can get that done. You've got to give him that mental edge. And the fact that I've been doing it for 40 years and I knew all the tricks of the trade. I know Keith Butler from Pittsburgh. I know what Keith's going to do. I know Dick LeBeau. I know Leslie Frazier. I know this. I know that. I know this. I know that. You know what I mean? And what they say. They said a tiger don't change its stripes, right? It'll stay there. They're gonna do what they do. You know what I mean? And I always told people, I can't coach something I haven't learned. I can only coach you what I know and how I learn it. And that's the one thing about defensive coordinators. They can only coach what they know. And that's why every now and then, I don't want to put his secret out because he's going to be in the playoff in a couple of weeks. But as a defensive coordinator, I know right now, today, if we go play him tomorrow, I'm going to get him unbalanced because he struggles with unbalance. And we've been able to run the ball and hit some big plays on him, just line up in unbalance, And those kind of things, going into games, and you just give it to your players, that becomes his advantage. He could never become Tony Gonzalez, But listen, I always told him he could step like Tony, he could plant like Tony, he could block like Tony. You can't catch like him, you can't run like him. You're not as big as him, you know what I mean? But when that guy steps up, you go ahead and release this way. When that guy step left, you release this way. So you could teach that to your guy and kind of give him a little bit of an advantage.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, Coach, you were an interim head coach twice, but something that you had mentioned a few minutes back now is, one of the things that potentially could keep you up at night now that you have time to actually reflect on your career is just that lack of opportunity. So I wanted to make sure that we get into this because you are so accomplished as a coach. I mean, to stick around in one of the most cutthroat competitive industries for as long as you have puts you on a pedestal that very few could ever hope to get, but still even you have things that you wanted to accomplish. When you think back on it, obviously anyone would understand why you would want to have been a head coach for more than just 2 interim stints. What are your thoughts about what your ride has been? And, do you think that you had a fair crack to actually get that? And if not, what are some of the things that, go through your mind as to maybe why that never came about for you?
Well, the biggest thing, for me is as I sit down and look back and think about it, and of course, I didn't just start yesterday. I started years ago. It hurts. It hurts. I think I don't care what you do. You're doing your show, you're doing your podcast. At the end of the day, you'd like to be at the top of your game. You would love somewhere in there that somebody says your rating is number 1 in America. You know what I mean? And you didn't make a decision, Steve, that, hey, I want to be on a podcast, but you know what? I want to be in the back room, plugging the microphone and stuff. No, you want to be front and forward, and you want to be the best out there. You know what I mean? That's your goal. And if you don't have a goal to be the best at what you do and to be at the top of the pedestal, then you're in the wrong profession. You know what I mean? And, all my life, I don't care where we were, what we did, I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the best. But I also knew I couldn't be Bo Jackson, and I couldn't be Marcus Allen, and I couldn't be Tony Gonzalez. You know what I mean? But I also knew that I could get myself to a point in time that I wasn't going to let any of those guys outwork me. Nobody's going to ever outwork me, when it came to work, But, I often look back and I feel a lot of pain because, my mom, my dad, people, like most people, I watch football now. I saw a game the other day, the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys played the other night, and it was awesome. I sat and watched them play. I don't sit down and look at a team and pull for them or pull against them. I look at a player and I pull for them. Dallas had the backup quarterback in the game. They had Russell in. I'm like, oh my God, who is that? I don't even know who he is, but he was in there. And you know what I was in love with, what brought tears to my eyes, was to sit there and watch his mama, his daddy, look like his uncle, his girlfriend stand up in the stands and go crazy. I mean, just lose their mind. His daddy started crying. That's what life's all about. You know what I mean? And I got a lot of pain that all my life, my mom, my dad, my brothers, my sisters, my town, I got a street name after me. You know what I mean? My town, my little bitty town, my people love me. And I hate the fact that my people never had a chance to, no matter where I went, coach. And I'm one of them guys like Leslie Frazier. I've coached a bunch of teams. But my people have followed me. Wherever I went, they followed me. When I went down to Miami Dolphins and coached for a year, our town was painted the Miami Dolphins color. When I went to the Buffalo Bills, they didn't say, oh boy, that's a crosstown rival. My town was painted Buffalo Bills color, But I hate the fact that my hometown, my parents died, without ever being able to celebrate me as a head coach or being able to climb at the top of that ladder and go get to the top, But listen, I come from a gene of really long, good people. One of my grandmother died, I think she's 107. One died at maybe 104, They raised me, I love them to death, and I never forget many, many years ago, my one grandmother, one of those two, would sit and tell me, she says, God will use you the way he wanted to use you. He didn't mean for you to be a head coach. Head coach can't reach everybody on the team the way you can as a human being. You travel the path God set for you. You don't travel the path Roger Goodell set for you. God is your leader. It ain't Paul Tagliabue. It ain't Pete Rozelle. It ain't Roger Goodell. God knows how he want to use you. And he'll use you in special ways. And when I look back at it, and I see you got Lee Bowden on your show the other day. That's a young man whose path I've crossed. I'm sitting here laughing the other day. I saw a guy, I don't watch your show. Every now and then somehow I catch you, but I'm sitting the other day and I saw you had a guy named Camarillo on here. Greg was on your show. All right, that's a young man I signed. That's a young man I signed in Miami. And I heard his story, how he wasn't going to do this, couldn't do it, didn't know he was going to make it, wasn't going to survive. And a lot of people say he had no business in the NFL. But I saw something in him and I signed him. I ain't talked to him in ages, but I saw something in Greg and I signed him. And y'all kept showing that one play, that touchdown he caught against San Diego. That San Diego game, we finished that year, I think we were 1-15. We were scared to death. We're going to go away in 16 and tie the record. And you should have asked Greg, who called that play? Who called that play he scored that touchdown on? I called it. I'm sitting there with my head coach, and my head coach was our play caller. Cam Cameron was our play caller. And I told him that's the best play we had going in the game play. Now, mind you, remember, I had come to Miami from Cleveland. I'd been in Cleveland for 7 years. So I had played the Baltimore Ravens every year for 7 years, twice a year. I didn't beat them, but I played them. And I knew what they do, and I knew how they did it. And I knew what I'd heard them with in the past. And we call that play with Greg scored on, we call it, some people say you don't go back to a play because they're going to cover it. You know what I mean? We call it the first quarter. It got us a first down. We call it the second quarter. It got us a first down. We call it the third quarter. So now at the end of the game, we need to make a play on third down. Head coach ain't sure what to call. We call that play Ernie. The reason we call it Ernie is because it was drawn up in 1947 by a guy named Ernie Zampese. See, that's why we named it Ernie. The play is named Ernie because it's named after Ernie Zampese. And my head coach, Cam Cameron, wasn't sure what to call. Come on, Terry, we got to make a play. I said, run Ernie. He said, we already called it 3 times. I said, work. Call it again. And we called it. We threw it to Greg, and he went down and scored the game winner. So that got us from being 0-16. On the same play, we call it Ernie. And that's how God used me. He didn't use me as a head coach, but he used me to do that. And I'm happy. I'm good. Like I told you, at the end of the day, it's
there it is.
Just getting one of these. That's the important thing. you know?
And just real quick, I'm so glad to get your perspective on that story, because Greg's perspective on that story is like, we've already called this, like he's about to crap himself because he's like, we've already run this 3 times. They
Yes,
definitely know that it's coming,
yes,
and he's
yes,
worried about Ed Reed coming to pick it
yes,
off. So
yes,
to get your side
yes,
compare it after his is
yes,
awesome.
yes. And that's what I tell you. I tell you something, Steve. And you know what you said? You know what you said? You said, Terry, all these guys, I asked you the question, how do you be around greatness so much and it doesn't rub off on you? You know what I mean? And I feel like I've been around greatness all my life. I mean, I feel like I've been around greatness since the day I was born. I really do. You know what I mean? I think early in my life, when I was first born, um, my high school baseball coach, imagine this, my high school baseball coach back in the 50s was drafted by the New York Yankees. And the guy went up to play with the Yankees. It was a pitcher. And the Yankees took him, and they thought so much of him, they were really high on him. And here in spring ball, he hurt his shoulder. And that guy there was a guy that helped raise me. I mean, held me as a baby and helped raise me, along with my football coach, along with my uncle. I had another uncle back then in the days, got drafted by the Cleveland Browns, went up and tore up his knee and never played, got hurt and never played, And, and that's why I said for me, how do you grow up and be around this stuff all your life and it doesn't rub off, it doesn't carry. Now, when explaining that story about how Greg said what happened, golly, they called it the first time. We've called it the second. We called it the first quarter, the second quarter. We called it the third quarter. They got to know it's coming. Let's not call that play. We call timeout. And everybody, let's not call that play. Let's not call that play. And I was like, and I'm looking at Greg like, are you scared? Are you scared to run it? Just run the damn play. Just run it. So we called it. He comes across, beat the DB, and catches it, goes and score. And that took me to another story. It was a guy named Eddie Robinson, right? Eddie Robinson won more games in football history than anybody else in the world. He was a head coach at Grambling, and he coached some of the greatest players in football. And I know the story well. And he's standing up talking to his quarterback, and they had a power play they used to run. It was a running play they used to run. And they'd run that play. And Eddie would call that play 15 times a game. Coach Rob would call it 15 times a game. And finally, Coach Rob called that play, and when they came out the huddle, the other team, they were playing Tennessee State, whoever they're playing, says, here comes the corner, here comes the corner. Let's go over here, over here, over here. And they stuffed it. And when they stuffed the play, the running back goes to the sideline, the quarterback goes to the sideline, and they're all bitching at Coach Rob, and they says, Coach, they're calling out the play. They know what's coming. Get off of that play. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. In the fourth quarter, they needed one play to win the game. And Coach Rob called that same play. And when he called the same play, they all turned and looked at him like, I can't believe you called that play again. Guess what happened? That play scored, and they won again. A running play. They scored and won the game. And when they all come to the sideline, he reached over and grabbed them. He grabbed them all. He said, come here, let me tell y'all something. He said, don't ever make a difference if they know what's coming or not. He said, football is about blocking and tackling, and my man beating his man. And I've always learned that lesson, and I learned it at a very early age, and I've always believed in it. It's blocking and tackling, and it's my man beating your man. And I believe that my whole life, Steve. I believe this as great a player as I told you that Tony Gonzalez is. And I don't know if Tony Gonzalez isn't the greatest player I've ever stood on the field with. I know a lot of great ones, man. And a lot of guys will be mad at me. But if I give you Tony Gonzalez, and I took a lesser talented tight end, I believe as a coach, I'm going to make a difference. I believe I could take my guy and beat your guy. It might not happen, but when we walk out on the field, I'm going to believe. I'm going to believe in me, and I'm going to believe in the guy I'm coaching. And I'm going to believe I could take my guy, and I'm going to beat your ass. That's me.
Well, by the definition that Al Davis laid out earlier, I don't think there's any question you're a good coach. But from talking to guys like Lee, and although I didn't talk to Greg specifically about you, I think it's pretty obvious that you would meet Al's definition of a great coach. So regardless if the head coach thing didn't happen the way that you would have liked, to your point about why are you here, the difference that in the lives that you can make, I think it's beyond a reasonable doubt. You touch so many guys. I think by all accounts, you are a phenomenal coach, not just a great coach, because why would someone like Lee, who wasn't even in your positional group, love you? You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
the impact you're able to make is just, it's what life's all about.
Yes.
So so many guys are blessed to have been able to get close to you. The greatness that you were around, I don't know when exactly it happened, but at some point you crossed the Rubicon and you were one of the great ones that people were happy to be around and lucky enough to absorb some of what you had to give. So, Coach, I don't have any more time today. It's been an absolute pleasure. But if I can leave this on one question, what's the best piece of advice that you would give to a young man on how to be successful?
Work hard. Don't matter what talent you got. Doesn't matter where you come from. I tell people, Andre Reed's in the Hall of Fame from Kutztown. What the hell is Kutztown? Jerry Rice is the greatest of all time. And he's from a little bitty school in Mississippi. It don't matter where you come from. Don't matter what color you are. Don't matter what your belief are. Don't matter what religion you are. You're a man. You got a heart. A lot of people can measure a lot of things about you, but they can't measure your heart, your love, your desire. Don't ever let another man outwork you. And always remember, if a man made it, you can take it. You can do it. Don't ever let another man outwork you.
There it is.